Hello everyone, and quite a great close-up that was of a Wahlberg's eagle, which is one of the migratory birds that has come back to Juma after spending many months away elsewhere in Africa, further north, closer to the equator, and even further north from there. And it's one of many bird species, about 200, that will return to this area over the coming months of summer. So it's wonderful to be out with all of you again this afternoon. And I'm teamed up with Jean-Dre on camera, and Jamie has headed out with Andrew, the same teams as this morning essentially. She's gone to look for Karula, who she left at about 8:30 this morning at the end of the morning drive, which sadly had to get called off due to heavy drizzle, which was making all of the equipment a little bit too wet. And Jean-Dre and myself didn't have nearly as much luck as Jamie did this morning. She was on the money wherever she went, whereas Jean-Dre and myself didn't have much to contribute to the safari. But that's how it goes, and hopefully this afternoon we'll be able to resurrect things. Our plan is to head into the western parts of Juma to follow up on a lioness that was actually seen on foot by Andrew, one of the guides, but he couldn't relocate her in a very thick block. A herd of elephants then came into the area, which made it too difficult to get, or dangerous rather, to get off the vehicle and try and track that lioness down. So those are our plans. Like I said, Jamie's going to search for Karula, and it's Jess directing the show with Nikki lending her a hand. Let's take a closer look at this Wahlberg's eagle. It's a wonderful close-up view, and in this cold, overcast conditions that we're experiencing today, we can often get a lot closer to the birds than normal because they're less reluctant to fly away from their huddled up little positions. You can see how it's erected all the feathers to create a thick blanketing layer, helping to keep it warm. In this view, we've got a really great view of its talons and those bright yellow legs. I'm fairly certain this is one of the monogamous pair of Wahlbergs that are both pale form. Interestingly, with this species you get a brown one and a white one essentially, and both of the individuals in this pair are the pale form, and they've got a nest just below Inga's house where some of the crew stays on Wahlberg's Road. So you may have seen the nest, and I think Jamie might have actually seen these two mating just yesterday afternoon. They've got such incredible eyesight, and you can see it's honed into something down to its left. I'm not sure what it can see. I'm looking off in that direction. Possibly its mate in a nearby tree, but no clear sign for now. Got a quick squiz at us there. You can also tell by the way the trees blowing gently in the wind that it's a fairly gusty afternoon. And the tree that it's sitting in is a marula tree, and it's quite nice to look at it now because they've got very thick terminal ends to their branches, almost like fingertips. They don't taper off to a very thin branch, and that's characteristic of the marula tree. But as they begin to bloom their leaves, there will be less evidence of these very thick fingertip endings, and we'll have to look for some other characteristics in the summer months. It's interesting how quickly some of the trees have already started pushing through their leaves, and if we look at the marula tree to the left of this one, you get a great contrast. I mean, look at that for an remarkable change. So who knows why the one has managed to get so far ahead of the other, yet they are only 30 or 40 meters apart. Beautiful. We are in the quarantine clearing, so kind of in the central parts of Juma now, and we will continue on a little two-track which takes us closer to where that lioness was seen. And as we make our way there, it's important to know that this is a live safari. So if you're joining for the first time, a very warm welcome. And my name is Scott, if you haven't met me before. And if there's anything you would like to know about safari, what we do, anything we see along the way, or just merely to send us your thoughts and comments, it's very, very easy to do so, and that way we can interact. And you can hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. So please send through as many questions and comments as you can. Apologies in advance if we don't get to all of the questions, but it is important to remember that there are a whole bunch of people joining in on the safari, and that's what we love about it. For the guests that come out here, there's usually a limit to 9 people per vehicle, but we've got no limits, and that makes for more fun, I feel. And not only more fun, but we get to share one another's thoughts and ideas and theories as to what's going on out here. And some of our viewers are incredibly knowledgeable and end up getting us presenters out of jail quite often, and we are very, very grateful for all the help you do give us. I'm guessing the lioness that was seen by Andrew this morning was probably the same one that Jamie managed to find you guys last night, that was left with one of the Birmingham males, who appears he needs to learn a little bit more about the birds and the bees, and mating was not, he was certainly not capable of mating, even though the lioness was throwing herself at him. And interestingly enough, it was a different Birmingham male to the one that she had mated with previously. It was the one with the kind of funny big eyes, who some of you, I believe, have named. I can't remember what exactly you've named him, possibly Tsotsi. Tsotsi or Scrapper. So those are 2 potential names. And I guess as we get to know these 5 males better, they may each get their own individual name. But for now, it's a free-for-all, so you can call them what you like. And speaking of the naming of animals, a lot of you obviously weren't tuned into the safaris where we explained why Sindile, a young male leopard whose name we always told everyone was going to just be our name for him, that was Sindile, until the guides in this area decided to name him his official name, and that usually is done at around a year of age. So we just named him prematurely, and we're waiting for the guides to name him, which they did. And there was a little bit of politics, and some of the guides weren't happy with the name, so they've reverted back to Shadow's Cub for the time being, which kind of means we have to revert back to Sindile, I guess. Anyway, it's bound to change again, but let's not let the names of animals bother us too much. At the end of the day, it's the animal that's the most important thing, not its name really. Happy to hear that we've already got a question through on the topic of names, and it's from Amy in Wisconsin. Hope all is well over there in Wisconsin. I've never been, but maybe one day I'll be able to do a bigger tour of America and all the interesting places within it. Amy's interested to know, how did the quarantine male leopard get his name? And he was named after the clearings where we've just come from, the quarantine clearings. Oh, so you just wanted to know what the actual clearings were named after, not the leopard. And it was a quarantine area that was used to help reintroduce certain animals into this area. The Sabi Sands was initially fenced off. It always hasn't been open to the Kruger National Park. And when it was fenced off, it was used as a mixed game and livestock ranch where cattle lived amongst the wild animals. Hard to believe, but they somehow made it work for a short period of time and then reverted back to only wildlife. And when they did revert back to only wildlife, they reintroduced a lot of game here. And that was a quarantine area where they would have had bomas or big enclosures. to allow the animals to acclimatize before being set free. And in turn, the quarantine male leopard was named after that clearing because he spent a lot of time hanging around there as he became independent. And there's no set rule for naming leopards, but the area that they hang around in is one thing, a road or a tree, or just a general area. Or it could just be a name like Madiba, which was a nickname used for our late president, Nelson Mandela. So we are getting into the area where this lioness could pop up at any stage. So please can everyone focus and help in the search for her. Look for a little ear twitching or a tail flicking or just a pale shade of beige somewhere in amongst this undergrowth. As we search for this lioness, we can answer a question from Makele in Johannesburg. And they're interested to know if the other Birmingham male that was with that lioness last night has reunited with the rest of the Birminghams. And I haven't got any updates on that matter, so not entirely sure. Hopefully that as the afternoon pans out, we will get a little bit more intel from the other guides. But for now, I'm not too sure where the other 4 Birminghams are and whether the last individual did reunite. As I said a bit earlier, I feel that that lioness that was seen this morning is split up from the male and is now on her own. I'm also not too sure where the other members of the Inkuhuma Pride are, Junior, the other lioness, and a group of 3 that split up together that were last seen on Sibambili. So we're just going to have to be patient with regards to those updates. Unless any of you know or have got updates from any of the guides from the surrounding camps. Just going to remove a branch that some elephants placed in the road. And you can see how the elephants managed to chew off a large amount of bark. So it would have snapped this whole branch off, not interested in the leaves at all, but only the bark. And even the bark, it didn't really do such a good job of finishing off, but it got a few pieces, and that's obviously enough for the time being. Good. The elephants, always having to clean up after them. What can you do? These wild animals just do as they please. I'm only joking, of course, it's their home, they can do what they like. And if we have to clean the odd branch out the road, if anything, gives us an excuse to stretch our legs. Eugene, who is one of our tech wizards who lives here at Djuma with us, was doing some work at his holiday home, a little tin building which houses batteries and a bit of equipment that helps get these pictures out to you guys. And it's either known as Eugene's Kaya, which means Eugene's home in the local language, or the Gauri Repeater is its official name. And he went out there to do some fine-tuning midday and was in a little tin shed when he heard some loud branches breaking right next to him, and he was surrounded by a breeding herd of elephants, which terrified him, and he was stuck in the comfort of his little holiday home for a couple of hours before they moved off and he could get back to the vehicle. So that's some interesting behind the scenes of what happened between drives today. and we're going to actually be heading in that same direction now in the hope that the lioness will pop out. This is also a very good area to potentially bump into Shadow and her cub Sindile. They spend quite a lot of time here. Looks like the elephants have been hard at work here, and you can see another branch in the road, which I'm just going to move out the way. This one looks to have been cleaned off far better by the elephants, and I'll show you what I mean. At least all of the bark here has been moved off and stripped cleanly, unlike the other example we had a look at just a few moments ago. And this is called the bush willow tree. This looks like a large fruited bush willow, and the bush willows are one of the densest, most heavy woods in this area, great for firewood, and obviously great for elephants to feed on the bark. Now, that will be specifically to this time of the year, and what we'll find is elephants changing their diet as the vegetation adapts and develops and blooms over the summer months. I have to practice my branch throwing if the elephants carry on like this, so we can at least make the road clearing a little bit more exciting and entertaining. It's a good place to bump into either Shadow or Sindile. And Trisha in Toronto would like to know, has he been seen since he got his rabies inoculation? Trisha, he actually hasn't, as far as I'm aware. There's a chance the Arethusa guys may have seen him, but we haven't got any updates from them, so we would all naturally would love to see him again after he has been darted, but I don't think there's anything to worry about, and just because we haven't seen him doesn't mean that he's not okay, but it certainly would be a very, very pleasant surprise if we saw him waltzing down the road towards us now. We also, Tricia, haven't heard any further reports from the Sabi Sands management as to whether or not that dog was rabid, because if it was, it means he will have to have a series of more inoculations. So that's also something we have to bear in mind. We still need to get the results back, and depending on what they are, will depend on whether he needs a few more darts. But even if he does, it's seriously not an issue, I don't think. He gets so much positive reinforcement from us as humans that we are not interested in scaring him or hurting him or feeding him. We only ever want to look at them, other than a handful of bizarre circumstances like this, that I really don't think will have a negative impact on his outlook to us. Okay, well, sadly we haven't had any immediate success with the lioness. I was hoping you guys were going to help us spot her, but we're going to have to relieve you of your lion searching and send you for a change of scenery with Jamie. We'll catch up a little bit later.
Good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the rather grey and gloomy sunset safari, but you can never be gloomy out here when you have things to find. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jamie and I have Andrew on camera with me this afternoon, and we've headed back to where I last saw Karula this morning on the sunrise safari, And unfortunately, we kind of had rain stopping play, and we had to leave Karula, last glimpse, disappearing into a drainage line just to the south of where I am now. So my plan is to loop around and see if we can catch up with this rather elusive leopard. Now, Karula and I have something of a tempestuous relationship. Every time I see her, she somehow manages to disappear off into a drainage line somewhere. And I'm hoping that we're going to manage to find her once again and see what she's been up to. I'm sure, I'm just hypothesizing that she might be around marking her territory, just because Kwetile was mating with Tingana right in the heart of her territory, and I'm sure that's put her nose out of joint for some reason. And anyway, on the subject of things that we can find, I have found something to show you. Just a little piece of carcass that I picked up on my way through. Now, just judging by the size of it and the teeth, we could definitely tell it's a jawbone, obviously. It's a lower jawbone. And if we count, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 molars, and not much else. I'm going to take a stab in the dark, and it's not really a stab in the dark, I can't think of what else it could be, and go with the African buffalo. This was the jawbone, quite possibly, of the buffalo that were killed by the Nkuhumas on Gwari Pan when I very first started working here. But just a really cool and interesting specimen. I'm going to mention something now, and that is I'm very, very careful about touching carcasses at certain times of the year. There is always the possibility that there has been some kind of death due to anthrax. Now, this time of year, with this amount of rain, it's very, very unlikely. It's only in the really dry times of the year in this particular area of the Sabi Sands that we get anthrax. But just bear that in mind if you are coming to travel through South Africa. You shouldn't go around picking up random specimens of bone. But this last remaining piece of the carcass, and that was a full buffalo only a couple of months ago, this could serve as so many different things. And I have seen animals like warthogs, antelope, giraffe, they all come through and chew on these bits of bone to supplement their calcium. So what I'm going to do is return it back from where it came from, especially at this time of year, because the tortoises are going to start coming out, which is what I'm really excited for. And the females also really need to have a bit of a nibble on bone, especially when they are producing eggs to lay in the area. So I'm going to return our big jawbone back to the earth and go off in search of Karula. It wasn't probably not the most graceful return to the earth I've ever performed, but I'm sure there will be something out here that can utilize it. Okay. Now let's guess and see where Karula is going to end up. On a cold, cool day like today, there's not much guarantee that she's going to be where we last saw her. There's a lot of the predators moving around on days like this. It's chilly and windy. We even had a little bit of rain, just enough to bring us to close the drive a little bit earlier. So I'm really hoping that the rain is going to hold off on our side. Now, for those of you who were watching the sunrise safari, we picked up a random bug, or I picked up a random bug that was on my leg, and I've spent the entire, put it out to the viewers as to what it might be. I had absolutely no idea. It was the most amazingly colored moth. It was really, really incredible looking. Unfortunately, it's decided that my hat is not the place it wants to be and has disappeared off somewhere. And I spent the entire afternoon desperately trying to figure out, I don't know exactly what it was. And I've been through all of them. At first I thought it might be a caddisfly. I went through all of those. I went through all of the moths that we can see out here. There's some that come very, very close, but just little odd bits are missing out. So very interesting, and I thank the viewers for all of their feedback. I'm going to be picking the brains of various presenters throughout the next few days to see if I can figure out exactly what this moth is. But I did try and do my homework. I just haven't had any success just yet. The other consideration that I thought about is the fact that there's a strong possibility that it is a color morph of some kind, an unusual coloration. And obviously the books can't list every possible form of insect that you do get of the different species, so that's possibly an answer to that. Now, Karula disappeared off into this drainage line in that direction, and she was heading straight this way. I'm hoping we might be able to pick up on her tracks, although it is very difficult tracking light at the moment. That jawbone with me a little bit earlier before returning it to its natural area, and I mentioned that it would be fed on by various animals around here. And Jim Butler, good afternoon and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. You were wondering if African giant land snails would feed on that, and they absolutely would, although they tend to, as far as I know, they tend to favor slightly fresher carcasses. But they are scavengers and helpers in the decomposition process, so it is entirely possible. And I'm hoping that we're going to start seeing more of them coming out as well. I think it's still a little bit too chilly. It is fairly nippy at the moment. It's a bit too cold for the tortoises and the land snails, but as soon as it starts to heat up after we've had this nice damp rain, I'm hoping that they're going to pop out again. Now, my rough calculations tell me that Karula should pop out, or should have popped out. There's no should have and no definite possibilities when it comes to Karula. But somewhere in this drainage line, keep your eyes peeled for spots. This morning, the only reason that her position was given away was by the very fierce alarm calls of the vervet monkey that was in the tree above her. That's the reason that I stopped to have a look what he was shouting at. I was very happy and very surprised to get a nice treat towards the end of drive. Where is Karula hiding? She's quite a sneaky one, that cat. The ellies that were here have also disappeared off somewhere. There was a herd just around here. Although the elephants seem to be loving Duma at the moment. Lots and lots of the herds around. Phenomenal how quiet it is out here. There's something about these rather chilly and rainy afternoons. They're entirely necessary, but it does mean that a lot of the antelope species in the game that we might see a little bit more often have gone to ground and disappeared. And so far, the animals that Andrew and myself have seen, the total is 1 waterbuck and 1 squirrel, and both of those were before the start of the Sunset Safari. They must be hiding somewhere, but they must just go to ground in this deeper, denser bush just to try and keep themselves warm. Other tantalizing chance, and one of the reasons that I've come up to the northern section of Djuma. Now this morning we were listening to the snippets of conversation between the guides on Buffelshoek, who were watching a wild dog pack with 12 pups moving around Hunter's Moon Lodge. I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that those wild dogs decide that it's time to come south and pay us a visit. It's been quite a while since they've been around. I think both packs in the area have pups, which sort of distracted their attention and kept them centered around the den sites. But those pups are starting to get a little bit older, and hopefully they're going to come across and start visiting further afield and maybe even into Djuma. Oh, Scott has got a little baby animal that we hardly ever see, so we're going to head across to him, and I'll catch up with you later.
Look at how cute this tiny baby Duiker is. I think it's the smallest one I've ever been able to show you. And it's got its fur all ruffled up in these cold conditions. And it looks like it's sampling some fresh green leaves. Now often with the smaller antelope like Duiker, their mothers will leave them hidden in an area. Obviously this one's deciding to explore a little bit, but we shouldn't be alarmed that its mother is not nearby. Because they are so small and can dissolve so well into the undergrowth, their parents have decided the best method of keeping them safe is to actually leave them alone, bunker it away. But obviously times like this could prove to be quite dangerous for this young Duiker. It's tiny and probably would only come up to my knee at the most. And as you can see, unlike the adults, it's not too concerned about our presence and is remarkably walking towards us. Can you believe it? Their name means diver in Afrikaans or Dutch, and that's a better display of what they usually do. And it's done a perfect job disappearing behind that branch now, but through default. It is so cute. Oh, toilet break. It's curled its little tail up and it's depositing a few little chocolate beans on the earth. Absolutely awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed your time with our dentist in camp, Jamie Patterson, as she explained the jawbone of one of the animals out here. There we go. What an awesome sighting that was. Pleasant surprise, and that is the great thing about being on a live safari. You simply don't know what is going to happen, and Chandra actually spotted that Duiker, and we both had huge smiles on our face. And it's interesting how a sighting like that could probably end up being the highlight for me this afternoon, because it's not often that we get to see cute little babies like that, or at least with the Duiker. But in the coming months we are going to see an influx of tiny babies, birds, reptiles, snakes, lizards, those are reptiles I guess, and a lot of the mammals. Hopefully some tortoises as well. So there's going to be an influx of new life into Djuma and Arathusa. And we are on Arathusa at the moment. And Raisa would like me to estimate how old I think that little Duiker is. I would say possibly around a month and a half to 2 months of age. It would have been probably half to a third of the size when it was born. So that's a rough guess for me. If any of you know or have raised Duiker before or know anything about aging them, please let us know your thoughts. Maybe what I can actually do is, I'm just going to reverse a little bit and go and stand by the little shoot that it was feeding on to give you an idea of how tall it actually was. And it was just back here, I believe. So we were parked here, and it went and fed on a little branch where I'm going to go and stand now, and it'll give you a good idea of exactly how big it is compared to me. I'm a few centimeters below 6 foot. I think I'm 185 or 186 centimeters. And it was here, nibbling on these branches. So it's tiny. So you've got a good idea of the size difference between that little Duiker and myself. But I would guess somewhere ISO probably around a month and a half to 2 months, maybe a bit more than that, but I'm certainly not a professional when it comes to guesstimating the age of Duiker. So I managed to get an update from Roy, one of the Arathusa guides, as he drove past us earlier, and they did find tracks of Kwatile and Tingana still together, so the passion had not ended last night, but may have ended sometime during the course of today. We're not too sure, but we're going to head into the area where they had the last tracks and hopefully be able to come up with some conclusive evidence as to whether or not they are still continuing their marathon of mating. And for those of you who are joining for the first time, Tingana and Kwatile are a male and female leopard who we've spent a lot of time with over the last 2 days, getting spoilt with some phenomenal mating action. I've probably taken 1,000 photos that I now have to sift through and try and choose the best ones, which is obviously not a bad scenario to be in, but I do have a lot of editing work to do now. And just to keep you guys updated on the lioness that we were intending to follow up on, we had a brief look around that area but couldn't come up with anything conclusive. So we'll head back into that area a little bit later if we don't have any luck with the leopard. So we haven't given up, just changed the plans ever so slightly. And changing of plans is something that you have to be ready for when on safari, because so often the animals dictate our movements, and surprise sightings and certain animals are found without us expecting them to be found, and therefore we have to drastically change our plans. Conditions are wonderful. I enjoy the cool weather, especially as we know we are going to have sweltering heat in the coming months of summer. 30 degrees Celsius plus, even sometimes into the 40s, and really humid conditions. And it's currently about 19 degrees Celsius, 67 degrees Fahrenheit, to give you an idea of what we consider cold. I'm sure a lot of you are sitting in far more frigid environments than us, but we are soft out here and not trained for the cold. South Africa is not a country that gets exceptionally cold. We very seldomly get snow, and if so, it's a very fine layer most of the time. So basically there's no snow skiing or snowboarding here. We have to head elsewhere on the planet for that action. And the first time I was in snow was actually when I was 21. So that's our excuse for considering this climate cold, when a lot of you, like I say, are probably dealing with a lot worse conditions than we are. Happy to hear that Donna in South Carolina is watching this afternoon's show, because she's reminded me of an injured zebra that we saw probably a week and a half ago. Donna, maybe you can remind us exactly when it was, but let's call it a week and a half or so. And it had a massive gash down its rump, probably the result of a lion trying to latch onto it, and then the zebra foal lucky enough to kick the lion off or escape, but it was left with a gaping wound. And we only saw it once, and it was never seen again, but that's not to say that it's not doing okay. Zebras will move considerable distances, especially at this time of year, as vegetation changes drastically between the different areas. As we have got some rain, and some areas have got even more rain than us, and the animals are incredible at understanding where to go in order to find food. And the zebras will be moving a lot, as will the wildebeest, and hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more in the summer. But sadly, Donna, no updates on that zebra for you. But who knows, it may pop in to screen this afternoon if we're lucky. To make sure that they're not nesting in any of the dead trees in this area, but can't seem to see any of them, so we will. I really love finding birds' nests and then monitoring them over the season. There's actually two that I've seen, or two potential birds that I've seen so far, both on the same day, but haven't spent too much time back at them, so I must remember to do that on one of the next safaris. They're across on Juma though, so not likely that we'll be able to get today. Speaking of nests, Jamie has managed to find you another flying creature's nest that she would like to show you. So enjoy and try not to get stung.
Welcome back, and although we haven't found too many other animals whilst you were with Scott and that adorable little baby Duiker, we have found something very, very interesting in a tree. And just have a look at how cleverly this has been created. I'm going to just hop out and turn it slightly so that we can see the entrance to it. What we have here, and I must thank Andrew for his help in identifying which particular one it was, is a very, very cleverly built wasp's nest. Just have a look there, you can see the one entrance to the tunnel. Can you get that, Andrew?
Yes.
Perfect. And it's built entirely out of sand and mud, glued together by a special substance that this particular wasp secretes. And it's known as a potter wasp, and there's lots and lots of different types, but I'm going to show you the picture in the book of the one that I think it is. But look how cleverly it's attached to the branches of this silver cluster leaf, which also keeps attaching itself to my hair. It doesn't look to be occupied at the moment, but this would be the right sort of time of year for these wasps to be then laying their eggs, which then hatch into grubs. and feed on the vegetative matter within this nest. So very, very cool. And leave it to sit as an existing structure, and just imagine how much hard work a tiny little wasp about that big has had to put into making such a beautifully intricate nest. There really are some incredible things out here. Just to give you a bit of a demonstration as to which wasp I believe it to be, and we've even got an awesome picture of the potter wasp building the nest. We've got these pictures here, so this is what we're looking at. Now I'm looking at the Latin name as we look at this picture, and I'm struggling at the reaches of my pronunciation abilities. So for picture 4, it is an Aphromenes Aethiopicus. We're going to go with that. I'm just going to let you read it because I might just struggle with that. But we've even got a nice picture here of what the wasp looks like and how it goes about building it. And they build them in all kinds of different places, in tree branches and thatching. Very, very clever little thing.
Is this the right picture?
This is the perfect picture.
Okay.
Sorry, Andrew. I got distracted by looking at the Latin name again. But a beautiful little wasp. You can see how she's intricately putting so much attention into building mud and sand around her special eggs to protect them. And then ultimately resulting in this perfect spherical ball. Awesome, awesome stuff. Very interesting. Thank you, Andrew, for both your help. We struggled with the Latin name for a while. I'm afraid that my Latin pronunciation is not what it should be. I did have a law professor who taught me Roman law many years ago, and he was terribly devastated by our lack of Latin knowledge, and he tried constantly to teach us. I'm just going to extract myself from the tree that we entered to get into the wasp nest. There we go. Just a little interesting moment. Out and about and back onto the road. Still no sign of precious Karula's tracks though. But sometimes it's really nice to stop and look at the interesting things and learn from them. Just the little things that are out here that make life so varied and fascinating. And I definitely, for one, learned something today. Whether or not I will remember that Latin name by the end of the Sunset Safari, we'll see. It's one of those things that I'll probably have to repeat to myself a couple of times before it sinks in. Oh, don't do that, weather. Please don't do that. Andrew, are you feeling the raindrops?
I am indeed.
Oh no, no, no. It's just a light drizzle at the moment. We're gonna be okay, it's gonna be fine. You can see how grey and gloomy it is. Little drops of rain coming through. Oh, no. Come on, rain, stay away. No, not stay away, just stay away for now. It can rain, just not now. Give it another 2 hours, it'll be fine. Okay, one more loop around onto Cheetah Cut Line to see if sneaky Madam Karula has crossed somewhere here. Now, if at this light level of drizzle does continue, every now and again Andrew's going to have to act as our camera windscreen wiper and just clear away the screen. Now, for those of you joining us for the first time, this is a live safari, which means anything can happen, from finding wasps' nests to being covered in drizzle. But we're also an interactive safari, so if you do have any questions for us or you have any comments that you would like to make, then you can do so on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And we'd love to hear from you, and especially from you viewers. Let us know if you're watching for the first time. We always love to hear about it. unfortunately we do indeed have a couple of new viewers, and I'd like to extend a warm welcome from all of us here at WildEarth to Mark, and we do hope that you will be continuing to watch us. We do this every day, twice a day, and we find and follow the most amazing stories out here, and we all learn so much from each other. It's awesome to have new people on board. And Jilly and many of the other viewers asking about whether or not there's going to be rain. I'm really hoping not. There's a light smattering of drizzle upon my face. I'm trying to pick a direction where the clouds look a little bit less thick, and keeping fingers crossed that we're going to escape it. We're right on the eastern boundary, checking to see what's become of that mysterious spotted cat. The one thing I have learned from tracking Karula is just because she's going one way when you see her doesn't mean that's where she's going to be when you next see her. She has a wonderful way of changing direction all of a sudden. We've been chatting a little bit about finding Karula, but in my head I've got a bit of a game plan as to what we're going to do today. And the end point of my game plan was to try and follow up with an animal that I know many of you are very, very keen to see. Now, Lucy, you were wondering if I had any updates for you about our active spotted hyena den. Now, unfortunately, we still haven't managed to find them. But don't worry, I missed them too, and I'm very keen to see if we can spot where they've disappeared off to. They must be somewhere around. I know that they were last seen moving west, away from their den site on Gallagher shortcut. So at least we have a starting point or a starting direction. So my plan for this afternoon's drive was, if we didn't have any luck here with Karula disappearing down into this drainage line, then I was planning on heading in that direction, and just in the hope that maybe we can spot a hyena and then follow it back to the den. Especially with all of the activity that's happened on Buffelshoek in the last few days, with with the lions killing buffalo around Tambueti Dam. I'm really keeping fingers crossed that we'll have an opportunity to follow them. But don't worry, I promise I'm also very, very keen to follow up with those spotted hyena dens. And for new viewers, what we're actually talking about is the active den sites that we have found, and this part of the hyena clan that we've been able to watch for weeks. And there's 3 different sets of age cubs of their cubs. There's older ones at around 9-ish months now, and then there's an older one who's around 9 months. 2 younger ones who are just 2 months younger than that, and then there's a really, really sweet, very tiny, only just getting his spots little cub. Oh, Scott has found a spotted cat, so let's head across to him and catch up with you later.
Welcome back, everyone. You wouldn't believe how lucky we've just got. We've been standing by in this area listening for any sign. Oh, there goes the Impala across the road there. The Impala just crossed the road in front, and that's what the leopard's stalking. She's got a good chance of getting it in these windy conditions. I'm not sure who it is. It could be Kwatile, the leopard we were looking for. No, I can't see a notch in her ear. It looks like Kwatile to me. And she literally came running out of the bush just in front of us. And she's chasing this lone female Impala. Okay, it's very thick, but there's another road that she's heading towards. How awesome is this? I cannot believe how lucky we've got. I literally couldn't believe my eyes when that leopard popped into the screen. And we actually saw this female impala being chased by a male earlier. And I thought, well, geez, imagine if Kwatile and Tingana caught her, because this is the area that they were last seen heading towards. Okay, here's the impala ahead of us. It's actually a young male. And I can't see the leopard anymore. But she's very cleverly following it. And this poor impala is terrified. In this windy conditions, all alone. Where is the leopard going to be now? This is awesome. Can you believe it? I think I'm just going to wait a second or two. I'm guessing this leopard could continue following this impala. It's a very good hunting opportunity in the windy conditions. It knows it's only got one animal that can try and detect it, as opposed to a whole herd of eyes and ears. Station, just had a brief visual of, I think, Shadow Lanzering 1 miler on shortcut Matandaluka, just to regain visual, and Zebra Drive. Doug, I've located Amafazi English. He's Lanzering Mala on shortcut Matundaluka, just north of Zebra Drive. I'm not sure if it's Shadow or Kwatile. Yeah, with pleasure, Doug. Please could you also control the liner? Okay, folks, I just had to let the guides know what was going on, but isn't this awesome? I think it's Shadow. I didn't see a prominent notch on her left ear. So even though we were looking for Kwatile and Tingana, we found another leopard. How lucky do you get? The impala has moved off quite some distance now to the left, but she's still very intent on following it. And as I've said a couple of times, but I must reiterate, these windy conditions are perfect hunting conditions for a leopard. It allows her noise to be muffled as she approaches, because there's so much ambient noise, as well as even her movement. All the bushes and stuff blowing in the wind allows her to move a bit more freely. Yeah, this is Shadow. I'm fairly certain it's definitely not Kwatile. Beautiful. She's looking around, wondering where this impala could be, but I think the impala may have shaken the leopard off its tail. This is great news, though, because this female leopard is the mother of Sindile, the leopard that was darted, that we were speaking about earlier on the drive. So even if she doesn't get lucky with her hunting, maybe she will lead us back to her cub. Well, Stephanie in Switzerland would like to know if I've trained these leopards, because my luck is like something she's never seen before. And I don't know, Stephanie, but I certainly haven't trained them. I am certainly getting very lucky, but it changes for all the presenters and guides. using a little log as a vantage point now to try and get a slight bit of extra elevation. She's certainly looking in the right area, because that's where the Impala headed. But I can't see any further sign of it. I'm using my binoculars to try and scan through the vegetation, but the closest thing I got to was a termite mound with very red soil, similar to that reddy orange coat of the Impala. That was so exciting. Oh, look at her body language. She's so focused. And she obviously heard something rustle up ahead and has now stopped to assess that audio. And thanks very much to Raisa, who is one of our leopard identifying experts, and they have thankfully confirmed that this is in fact Shadow. Maybe she was lurking on the periphery of Kwatile and Tingana and their mating. It's not uncommon for female leopards to trail females who do not belong in this area. This is Shadow's territory, not Kwatile's, but Kwatile would have followed Tingana here for mating. Now we're going to try our best to keep our distance. We don't want to chase the Impala away or give the leopard's position away to the Impala. So we want to try and remain as neutral as possible in this hunt. So we'll be hanging back as much as we can, but still keeping an eye on the leopard. Going to stop now and also give Doug an update, who's joining us here, and he's offered kindly to control the sighting for us, which means he is going to be on the radio managing all the people queuing up to come here. Doug, just to let you know, probably 200 meters north of Zebra Drive. She's headed east into the block. I dropped a Gwari branch, but you will still get our visual from the road. Leopard hunting in the daylight, it doesn't get much better than this, everyone. And I love watching their tails when they're hunting. They're such good indicators of emotion. And she's holding it up high now, a trait of her mother, Karula. They both do it from time to time, and it's one of my favorite things to see. Doug for Scott. Doug, I've dropped a Gwari on Matundaluka, just north of Zebra Drive, maybe 20 meters. We've headed west from there. Affirmative west, sorry, I got confused earlier. Going to stop here, it's just so thick, John. Oh, there's lots of Impala running up ahead there. I think we can move again. I think she might get one of these Impala. They're running wildly almost towards her. Hold tight, everyone, and squeeze in. She's run quite a large distance ahead of us now, so we don't have to worry about intruding in the hunt, because they're quite a way ahead of us already. And apologies, I'm going to need to try and concentrate here. There's a whole myriad of aardvark holes that we could fall into. We should just stop here. I've seen a few Impala up ahead. I've got no idea where she is. And John is just going to wipe the screen quickly. There's a bit of drizzle. The Impala just at about our 10 o'clock. I'm not sure, John, if you've got view of them. But you'll find what may have happened is that Shadow may have tried to get as closest to those running Impala as she could and then flattened herself to the ground as soon as they stopped moving. There we go, there's some. Well done, Jandre. And she could very well just be waiting for these Impala to actually run into her rather than her running into them. Doug, I've just lost visual, but there are some marlas up ahead here that she was heading towards, so I'm sure she's still in the area. Okay, let's creep forward a little bit and see if we don't get a visual of her anywhere. Just in front of us. Very thick bush though. Doug, I've got her again. She's just 20 meters in front of my vehicle. The marla are off to my 9 o'clock. Look at that. Absolutely awesome. She blends in so well. She's got herself into a good position. The Impala were running from the direction she's looking in towards her, and I saw probably 10 or 15 just running wildly through the bush, but she obviously just couldn't get into that spot in order to ambush one of them. But she's chosen to wait in a good place because there's a chance that the rest of the herd may follow where those other individuals were running from. Just gonna, I don't know what to do. I just want to try and get into a good spot for Doug to get a visual, but it's going to be very tricky. How's it, Doug? So I was just doing a little bit of sign language with Doug there. He's just arrived in the sighting with his guests, just letting him know exactly what's going on. And this is a really good prospect. The Impala, it looks like quite a few genre, you might be able to get them from there, are off to her left, just to give you an idea of exactly what she's up against. So it's quite a big distance, and that could change, especially if the Impala run towards her like the rest of the herd did earlier. I'm guessing there's maybe 10 or 15 off to our left. But she would need to be within 5 to 10 meters of them before she explodes on her charge, or chase rather. And at the moment she's probably about 50 or 60 meters away. The wind is swirling. I'm not sure if it's in her favor or not, but for now it's blowing from the Impala gently towards us, so I don't think the wind is going to let her down. You can see how nervous all the Impala are. This windy weather certainly makes for tricky predator detection. As I mentioned earlier, the ambient noise from the wind, as well as the ambient movement from all the bushes, will help this leopard to creep closer when it decides to. But for now, Shadow is still bunkered down in the same spot where you last saw her. We don't have a good visual of her. It looks like the Impala are slowly moving off a little distance away from her, but she's still in a very fortunate position. One thing we also need to bear in mind is she's probably wanting to get her breath back. We don't know how long she was chasing that lone Impala for when we first saw her. But being crouched and poised for long periods of time, understandably, is quite tiring, so maybe she's catching her breath before the next attack. I'm just going to chat with Doug quickly, everyone. Doug, we were standing by on Zebra Drive shortcut Mtunduluka because that's where I heard, you know, Tingana and Kwatile were heading towards, their tracks at least. We were just sitting there listening to nothing, and then she just came running across the road after this lone Impala.
It might be, I can't see her face, I'm not sure.
I think it's shadow, and one of our ID experts have confirmed it. We got a decent view.
Already, okay.
But it's not Kwatile, she doesn't have that big notch. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Has her cub been seen?
Not since you saw him, I don't think.
Okay. Okay, well, Doug has confirmed that Sindile has not been seen since we last saw him when he got inoculated. So the last and only update Doug has is that there were some tracks on the boundary between Juma and Arathusa. So let's hold thumbs, because if this leopard gets lucky, she will have to go back and call him to share her kill. And that way we'll all get to see him. Doug, I might, Doug, if you want, I don't know if I could maybe squeeze around this way and then you guys can, yeah, perfect. Okay, cool. So we're just going to reposition ever so slightly. I don't think it's going to have any impact on the hunt, and that's important. We don't want to interfere anything here and ruin anything for this leopard or for the Impala. So I think it'll be safe for us just to creep forward a few meters here. That way Doug can also show his guests. Just like this, where it's extreme excitement and high tension while they're hunting, and to Impala, whatever they're asleep, they are then fast asleep, and thereafter the leopard wakes up and the Impala have moved off considerably. But we're in luck, that's not the case now. It doesn't look like she's ready for sleep yet, and she is probably planning on trying to encompass these Impala now and try and loop around them. Beautiful. Okay. I'm going to try and keep a wide berth. But it's as we off-road, it always sounds a lot worse than it actually is, and 95% of the parts we drive over just pop straight back up, so it's causing damage to the environment, or considerable damage. And if that had been the case, this reserve would no longer be viable, because people have been behaving in the same way for about 50 years now. And if anyone is caught driving over the wrong tree that is not designed to be driven over, they will be reprimanded, possibly even asked to leave. Impala have disappeared to? Well, I think they're still off to her left and she's just trying to keep up with them. And so are we trying to keep up with her. In the Netherlands has agreed that we are very lucky to be experiencing this, and has asked how many times have we been so fortunate to see a leopard hunting live on safari, and I've only seen one leopard kill since I've been here, so it's not very often at all. And the difference between hunting during the day and hunting at night is that during the day we can see them. During the night we can't see what's going on because we can't use the spotlights, and it would give away either the predator or it would blind the prey. So it doesn't happen as often as you would like. Jandre, have you seen a wolf? All right. No? Thanks, Jandre. I've been trying to navigate the way through here, which was not that easy. Thankfully, Jandre has been keeping an eye on it. Got it just up ahead of us here. So yeah, basically, Ramon, nighttime hunting is no good because we don't have the correct equipment in order to film inobtrusively at nighttime. Beautiful. Look at that coat. Probably looking extra clean after the small amount of drizzle and rain we've been having. Everything is crisp and clear. So who knows, maybe this will be my second live kill with you guys. But it's important to remember that the majority of leopards hunts end up as a fail. Awesome. And Stephanie in Switzerland reminded me of the baby Duiker that we didn't see not too long ago. And it's not in the right direction for shadow to find, so it's in luck. But like I said earlier, Duikers will use hiding as their primary form of defense against predators. And just like the steenbuck we saw hiding from Kwatila and Tingana yesterday afternoon, small antelope can just flatten themselves in the ground and hope to not be seen. I want to try and get ahead of her a little bit because the other vehicles don't get to see her. I just wanted to get the other guides who are in much more difficult vehicles to navigate than ours, get them a chance to get their guests a glimpse. Unlike us, they have huge pressure to show their guests all the animals during a very short stay, whereas you guys tend to forgive us on the more quiet drives. I love these shots when they're moving through thick vegetation, especially when the cameraman does such a good job of keeping them in focus. Beautiful. There goes guys. A good spot. Pop through your screen now, guys. Isn't it good to see enjoying themselves here out on safari. This is such a beautiful shot. I hope you're taking screenshots. Oh, well, can you believe it, Ramon? We're going to be here in 2 weeks. That's great news, and hopefully you'll get to see this very same leopard when you get here. Know when you're around. We'll ask one of the guides to bring you across to Djuma. That's something that would really like to come out. Direction quite drastic. Trying to scan around just to make sure we're not chasing away any potential prey, but there's nothing to see up ahead just yet. This will be a good place to stand by and wait for her to proceed towards us. I left her off to my right. And she'll just stop temporarily, just to scan up ahead. There's also a very large termite mound, which I can see that she could use as a vantage point. Should be coming into your frame shortly. You can just see it through that thick vegetation to the right of the big tree trunk. There's a little bit of lighter colored soil, and that's a very large termite mound. And it's very common for leopards to use them, especially when hunting like this. Negative, Roy. Let me go back a little bit. I'm sure she's going to continue towards us. I was just asking me if we could see her. We don't want to lose her. I just let him know that I couldn't, but I'm convinced that she is coming towards us. Okay, they've got her. And she is heading towards that termite mound. She might jump up on there to a vantage point. Let's go and see. Exciting stuff. I know. Like the emotion I got was that she was heading far away, but in fact she was exactly where I left her. It looks like exactly what she is doing. So that's just one of those things that I should have known better, and I should have just got on the radio and communicated. I think we've had such good views. Good news, she is on the move again. It's not going to be the easiest job for Genre, but let's see what he can make of it. Oh no, he's making easy work of it. There we go. Well done, Genre. And she's walking directly past where our vehicle was parked. But I quite like these long distance views, watching them slink through the undergrowth. As much as, of course, it's great having them walk right past the vehicle. Wonderful. were lucky enough to see the same leopard we're looking at now mating with Tingana. It was the big male who was mating with Tile yesterday. And Timmy in Kansas City, could we expect to see signs of her pregnancy from that mating with Tingana? It's important that you guys know that she didn't only mate with Tingana, but also the Anderson male shortly afterwards. And I'm guessing that was maybe 3 weeks ago now. Maybe you guys can remind us of the exact date, but we'll probably only start seeing signs of a pregnancy about 2 months into it. So 2 months into the roughly 3-month period, you'll start seeing an extra flap of skin or tube on her stomach. But it's not easy to see. They're not heavily pregnant like Impala or the other herbivores. Carnivores give birth to very underdeveloped young, which makes sense because if they were hugely pregnant, they wouldn't be able to catch food for themselves. So whenever we saw her mating, Timmy, 2 months from then, we'll start seeing signs of babies. It wasn't, in fact, a successful copulation, which I'm guessing it was. Sorry about all the scratching and squeaking. These black monkey orange trees that we drive through. Genre, go ahead. Just give me a quick wipe again. These black monkey orange branches that we drive through make a terrible screech as they scrape along the side of the cars. It sounds a lot worse than it is. There's some guests enjoying the action, and she's going to walk right past the back of her vehicle, it looks like. Her body language is sure to, yes, here she comes. Awesome. Interesting, Genre, straight ahead of us, kind of 1 o'clock. There's a hyena. Look at this. 2 large predators in the same site, and can you believe it? I don't think this hyena knows that the leopard's here, but there is a strong chance that it's following the scent of this leopard, and they will follow leopards in the knowledge that leopards are good hunters and that they can steal their food from them. Now I just need to keep an eye on the leopard. I've got her just to make sure she doesn't disappear while we're looking at the hyena. And this is going to be interesting. So slightly. Go leopard, go leopard, go leopard. He's hissing and snarling at this hyena. Go wide, Andre. Look at this. Absolutely awesome. He's hissing and snarling. It's difficult to know what to do to show you the snarling or show you the proximity of the hyena. Look at this. Absolutely fascinating behavior. She's turned around to keep her sharp end facing him. And this hyena is just sniffing around in the area. I'm just going to creep forward ever so slightly quickly. Just sniffing around to see if there's no meat or kills nearby. Okay. Absolutely awesome. Can you believe this? It's remarkable to see how, because there's no meat around, she knows that this hyena's got no business fighting with her. It could be unnecessary. If she had a kill, he that hyena certainly would put up a fight. And it's using its incredibly powerful sense of smell to try and work out what's going on. It's smelling exactly where she was sitting earlier. Well, Shadow's completely relaxed now and is actually grooming herself as the hyena reapproaches. But that body language might very well change again. Just making sure there's no evidence of a kill anywhere. Well, what a twist in this afternoon's events. That was really, really awesome interaction to see between two of the large carnivores we get out here, the spotted hyena and a beautiful leopardess. Now, I'm just going to double check what the standbys are for the sighting. As much as I would love to spend the rest of the afternoon here, I think there's a lot of people queuing up to come and see, and even though we are very different to the guides with their guests in terms of the amount of time they have to show them everything, it is important for us to try and behave accordingly when it comes to the standbys. Roy, how many people are standing by? I'm happy to make space. Okay, yeah, we have to go, guys. There's 5 people queuing up to come here, so I'm going to go. And it has been awesome, everyone. We've had such a wonderful sighting of her, and it seems like she is going to relax for the time being. We got to see her stalking and chasing those Impala, extremely exciting stuff. And then that interaction with the hyena, who would have thought we would get to see that this afternoon? Absolutely awesome. But like I say, there are 5 vehicles that are queuing in this rainy, horrible weather to hopefully get a glimpse of her. And I think it would make sense for us to give those people a chance. So we're going to move off. We'll try our best to go and find some other leopard now that we can call everyone to. I'm only joking. I'm getting a bit cocky now. Right. That was fantastic. And rather than dragging you through the bundu bashing off-roading that we're about to go through, you have the pleasure of jumping onto Jamie's vehicle, who's heading off in the direction of another wonderful sighting that you guys should enjoy. See you later.
Welcome back, and what amazing luck we have all had with leopards over the last few days. So cool that we get to see Shadow again, and it sounds like she was having a really, really exciting time hunting those Impala. Now in the meantime, Andrew and I have been driving around, and unfortunately we haven't had the same level of luck as Scott has had this afternoon. in finding leopards. I'm not sure where Karula went. She has disappeared. But my hero of the day today has to be Eugene, who just called me now to say that he's seen a herd of elephants moving from Inge's house, where we live, across into quarantine. So I've just come through Philemon's Dip. We're heading up there now, and let's see if we can get those wonderful ellies out in the open once again. I've just been keeping an eye on these hyena tracks I've seen in the road, just to give you an idea as to where to follow up later this evening to try and find out where that hyena den has vanished to. Oh, so excited to see more ellies. It's been such a special 2 days with them. I hear that Scott also had a hyena in his sighting with Shadow. Now probably with the Arethusa, him being in Arethusa might mean that it's a hyena from a different clan. It's a good couple of kilometers away from where we usually have the sort of core den sites of this area. I'm just keeping my eyes peeled for ellies so we don't come in here too quickly. Where are you hiding, elephants? Eugene said they were right at Inge's house, which is off to the side there. But the nice thing about that hyena being around with Shadow is it means that the hyenas are out and about in weather like this, moving around, so we definitely have a higher chance of finding out where they've gone. This clearing is looking very open and very pachyderm free. I wonder where they're hiding. Be surprised at how well elephants can disappear. There we go. Got them. Yay. Well done, Eugene. So there is Inge's house off to our right as we're passing through. That's where some of the crew lives. There we go. Oh, and I think they're going to make their way towards the dam, which is even better than quarantine. Might be heading across for a drink. Oh, interesting. That's very interesting. Tuskless elephant. Big tuskless female. Ah, this is, I think, the same young group that we saw up at Buffelshoek Dam. Hello, big girl. It's got the two young and playful males, one of whom tried to come and intimidate us earlier this morning. Now, I'm sure you're wondering about the fact that this female doesn't have any tusks. And it's not unheard of, it's not common, but it's not unheard of for ellies like this to be born without tusks. It is a genetic thing, although it is possible that she broke them off as well, but most likely it's a genetic abnormality that has left her without tusks. That's very interesting. It doesn't really impede her too much. You can see she's quite healthy and happy looking, and she has got a calf, so she has been breeding perfectly. It just means that she might struggle a little bit with stripping bark. And there goes baby following behind. Very cool. interesting to see. Just like we see some elephants with big tusks and some elephants with small tusks, sometimes you just see them with no tusks. The rest of the herd is following behind. They've changed direction now. I thought they were going to head across to the dam, but they're actually coming across here, and they are moving towards the open area, which is awesome, and we get to see all of them out together. Now the young bulls that were playing with us are over there. I'm just wondering if they're going to come and say hello again. Duck my head down so we can have a look. Oh, and there's another weenie baby. Oh, we've been so lucky with our elephant sightings. I wonder if this is our little baby from this morning. Awesome stuff. What a treat it's been to spend so much time with these. Oh, bless you, Andrew. Bless you.
I was trying to hold it in.
I know, I saw. Poor Andrew was desperately trying to hold back that sneeze, and as a consequence nearly launched off the back of the car. It is that time of year where there's a lot of pollen and dust about. Oh, little one. Some gentle rumblings happening there. Baby just stopped for a quick drink. And the mom's actually letting the others know, especially this younger one, not to come too close to her. Look at her with her trunk folded up like that. Oh, sweet. Having a really good drink. Please, when we get some nice shots of this baby, definitely take screenshots and share them with us on #SafariLive on Twitter. I would encourage you in this kind of light to do it in black and white, would be our suggestion. See if we can get some really pretty images. Oh, begging for milk. Oh, shame. No, Mom, I wasn't done. Poor little thing. Now, as this mom starts to come past us, we just try and have a look at the flaps of skin between her back legs. Oh, oops! Oh, never mind. There's a stumbling block. Oh, but he's too cute. He is the same one from this morning. Hello, gorgeous. Try again at having a moment to suckle now that Mom's found a tree to eat. Oh, but Mom's just not staying still long enough. I really honestly think this might be the cutest baby elephant I have seen. He's such a character. Well, going to go and say, maybe not. Maybe Mom will let me drink again. No, Mommy's moving off. That baby is quite simply one of the most special things I've seen while I've been working at WildEarth. I don't think I'll ever get tired of watching it. Now, apparently many of you are picking up on the fact that there is a herd of ellies at Duma Dam, and that could well be part of the same herd. We're not far away at all. We're just very close to that clearing, probably about 200 meters away from where those ellies are drinking. I'm going to stay with this herd for now, just because we have got this wonderfully entertaining little baby. It could well be part of the same herd. It could also be part of another herd that is moving through the area. It's not uncommon for elephant herds in the same sort of moving about in the same sort of area to interact with each other, and a lot of the time they can actually be related. Now, if an elephant herd does get really big, reaching 30 or 40 elephants in number, it's not uncommon for it to split apart, but still come together every now and again and spend a bit of time with their relatives and their aunts and their cousins. So it could be part of the same herd. I think it might be. We're very, very close to where they are, but we've got them moving so nicely out into the open, and we do have this incredible little character of a baby that I think we're going to stick around here for now. I'm going to stay where I am for the moment. Just have a look at what this little one's up to. Oh, still very unstable on legs. It might even be younger than I originally thought. Just seeing it out here. This morning I said it was probably somewhere in the region of 7 months. I'm starting to think it might be a little bit younger. And this little ellie that it's with could well be an older sibling. There's a very good chance of that. Hello. Hello. And gorgeous. Yes, you're still very cute too. Not quite as cute as your younger brother. Look how special this is. This interaction probably between siblings here. There's a good chance that this is an older sister. That's why Mom is being so tolerant of her presence around her baby. And she's very, very gentle. This little one is, this female is probably about 5 or 6 years old. And we've got a perfect family shot of these three. And she'll practice the mothering skills that she's going to need in the future on her little brother. She's actually being quite protective. She's making sure that she stays between us and the vehicle, between us and the little baby. Oh, trying to suckle. Oh, you're still hungry, little one. Oh, we've got ellies everywhere. I can't describe the feeling of peace that you get when you're with elephants. It's just something you have to experience yourself. Some rumbling happening. This little baby, I don't think I can ever get enough of. It really is too adorable. Even the head shape looks so young. It's almost just a perfect little baby specimen. Oh, Mom, I'm trying to get a drink, Mom. So precious. Oh, we've got an up-close and personal visitor. Hello. There's so much happening and there's so many levels of interaction here. Look at the way they're backing up, making sure that they still keep that baby in a safe position. It really is quite phenomenal to watch. While I wait for these ellies to move a little bit away from me, they are so beautifully relaxed that I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. I'm just going to sit and let them get a comfortable distance before I reposition the car. But in the meantime, Carol, you were wondering how old that little baby is. Originally I said 7 months. I'm starting to think he's a lot younger. I'm actually starting to think 4 to 5 months, and possibly even younger than that. I'm actually struggling to age him. He's not as stumbly and as uncoordinated as newborns are, and it puts him just over about 3 months, but he's still very, very young. And something that I picked up on, now all female elephants have that flap of skin between their legs, and that's a sort of a lowered labia. It's extended slightly downwards, just especially for when they give birth, so that the 100-kilogram baby fetus doesn't have to fall too far when they do actually give birth. And it also makes mating a little bit easier for them, so that the females, so it can happen very quickly, and the females don't have to bear the weight of the male on their hips and their backs for too long. Now all of the females have those slightly drooping labia, but in this case I've noticed that this mother hers are still quite low down, and they do look a little bit raw, almost like you can still see evidence of the birth of that little baby, which tells me that it's not more than a couple of months old. But I'm just trying to weigh up the different levels of coordination. I'm going to say 4 months to 5 months old. Could be even younger, but that's roughly where I'm putting it at. They've moved a comfortable distance, so we can reposition around them and find a nice spot to watch their goings on. So cute. I really honestly cannot think of a better way to spend an afternoon. For me personally, to spend this much time with elephants as I have the last 2 days, and actually to spend this amount of time with this herd, has been truly special. Oh my goodness. All clumped together, some serious family bonding happening here. Make sure we give them plenty of space, respect, especially with this tuskless female, who I'm going to give plenty of space and respect. Hello, mommy. Oh, it's chilly and rainy. Hello, big girl. Hello, my big girl. Okay, it's as close as I'll come, I promise. Just doing a quick windscreen wipe. Now this beautiful tuskless female who's come across, not in a threatening way, just in a way that tells me she is keeping an eye on me, and she wants me to know that. Now, Sharon in Pittsburgh, welcome to the Sunset Safari. You were wondering if this female would ever have the chance to become the matriarch, despite or with all of her perfect imperfections. And absolutely she could. In terms of elephants, for females, although those tusks are useful for defense, they've still got that huge size. And just looking at her, she's clearly one of the biggest ones in this herd. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if she was the matriarch, especially with this protective way that she's come to stand between us and her family. And if she's not the matriarch, she would definitely be one of the high-ranking females. Rank in an elephant herd is earned by age and experience. They all have special leadership qualities, and usually it's the oldest female in the group. But she could well be the wise matriarch of them. All right, big girl. She's letting us know she's keeping an eye on us. She stopped feeding. She's just watching. The rest of them are having a wonderful time off in the ground there. All right, big girl. Hello, my big girl. All right. Just watch her behavior. She's not going to feed. She was pretending that was displacement behavior, where she wrapped her trunk around the plant. Now she's very clearly given the message to the rest of the herd to stay with her. And that's interesting. She is uncomfortable with our presence in the clearing, and she was giving us a very clear message, and now she's leading her family away. It's interesting that that's happened now in terms of the time that we've spent with these ellies. But I think we've just had a very clear indication that at least in this part of the herd, that is indeed the highest ranking female. And it could well be the matriarch. Now, in terms of warning signals, if you were watching the sunrise safari, when that young bull came up to us nice and close with his ears up and his trunk out, and we gave him a bit of a stern talking to, you'll notice I didn't try any of that with that female. I was reading her body language very carefully, and she gave us a warning. And that warning was, do not come any closer. We can still stay with them, but we're going to stay at a nice, respectful distance, because that was a very, very clear message from her. And it's important to make sure that we don't push any boundaries with these elephants. I'm going to loop around now that they have moved, but I'm going to stay quite far away from where she is. She's very, very protective of the rest of the herd. The rest of the herd are relaxed. Now, it's not uncommon, actually, as far as I know, for tuskless females to be a bit more stern about life, and that could be because they are missing tusks, so they are missing one level of a defense mechanism. I think they might even be making their way towards the rest of the family at the dam. And we shall proceed after them, but nice and slowly and cautiously. I'm actually going to take the road so that we don't cause any unnecessary noise and crashing. As we're just looping nice and slowly down to these elephants, Sandy in Palm City, Florida. I'm hoping, I said this morning as well, but I'm really hoping your weather is slightly better than ours. Ours is rather chilly, rather windy and rather drizzly. But Sandy noted that the elephant's nipple, which is up between, her nipples are up between her front legs. Sandy points out that they really are rather quite high, and would the mother, when the calf is newly born, would she bend down to help the calf feed? And that's interesting. It's actually not something I know the answer to. I'm just trying to think if I've ever seen them do that. And as far as I've ever seen, and I have seen newborn calves, they've always been able to stretch up and reach their mother's nipples. But I'm sure that elephants would definitely, if they're babies, if it was a particularly tall female, if their babies were not capable of it, I'm sure that they would be smart enough to bend down for them. Oh, what a wonderful sight. I'm stopping here just because of that tuskless female giving us quite a clear indication that it was not acceptable to go too close. Look how many elephants we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 all feeding around one tree, and one little bubba at the back. It's interesting. The female on the left of this marula is also missing tusks, and that's not the same one. That's a different individual. So just to the left of your screen, just in case you were wondering what all of that raucous noise was about, it was just that one elephant got a little bit too close to the baby and it made that typical squealing noise that they do. Here we go, there's our other mother. Not the one with a notch out of her tusk, but in a moment I'm actually going to suggest that we leave the sighting. We're fine for now, but something has unsettled them in elephant world. I can hear a lot of rumbling happening between the females. And our tuskless friend has come back to investigate us once again. Hello, big girl. You're okay. Hello, my big girl. She is eating, and she is chewing and swallowing. It's not just displacement behavior, but she's once again come to put herself very close to us to make the point that we are not to come any closer. Very interesting messages being passed on here. And the fact that these elephants have moved from where they were to down here and back up again, they met up with the rest of the herd, who must have walked up from the dam, I imagine. So the number of elephants has increased exponentially. There's our little one again. Let's stay and watch them as they come and move past us. And then, depending on their reaction, I'm probably going to leave the sighting. It is starting to get dark, but we'll stay with them for as long as possible. Oh, little one. I am so in love with this baby. It's too adorable for words. And the special bond between them. Going to enjoy the moment of peace as they walk past us. No, little one, that's not going to work. It's definitely not going to work. That's not Mom. I'm going to try anyway. Really, truly one of the most special elephant sightings I've had, all combined, over the last 2 days. There's something quite profound about them. Okay, we're not going to be starting the engine anytime soon to try and follow up on them. We're going to let them move peacefully. Just one more question that we have from Wolfgang while we've been sitting with this elephant. Well, Wolfgang from Sweden, welcome to the Sunset Safari. You were wondering if I could talk a little bit about the difference between African and Asian elephants. The most obvious being the size of their ears. I'm sure most people will know African elephants have very, very large ears in comparison to the Asian elephant's ears, which are probably less than half the size. Well, the other one of the main differences is their trunks. In African elephants, the lips of the trunk, so that right at the end, it has two folds that work like this. In Asian elephants, they actually have only one, so this bottom part is just the end of the trunk, and then they use it more in this kind of manner, rather than two, I can't remember the terminology, I want to call them fingers. They're obviously not fingers because they're part of the nose, but they work in a similar way. So African elephants have two, Asian elephants have one. Now as our ellies move off, and I want to just sit and gauge their mood a little bit longer, I believe that Scott has gone from a leopard to a leopard tortoise shell. So let's see what he's up to, and I will catch up with you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone, and it sounds like Jamie certainly did get you into a wonderful elephant sighting. Sounds like there was a little bit of excitement and danger at the end there, which is great stuff, and a bit sad that she felt like she had to leave the sighting, but certainly the right move on her behalf. It's not worth taking chances with breeding herds of elephants. The mothers can get very worked up and protective over their young, and you certainly don't want to get on the wrong side of them. Now, you would have noticed we have an artifact up here on the dashboard. It's another form of leopard, but the reptilian leopard, not the mammalian one that we were looking at earlier. And sadly, this one is not alive, and as I slowly swivel the shell around, you'll see that it's been chewed on and broken up. Hard to tell by what exactly, but I'm guessing either a hyena or a lion. You've got to have very powerful jaws to be able to break into the hard shell of a tortoise. The reason why this is called the leopard tortoise is because of these beautiful leopard-like markings on the shell. And interestingly enough, we will be able to see a lot more of these in the summer months. They've been lying dormant during the winter. So quite sad that the first one we've seen this summer is a dead one, but we can gain some interesting information from it. And as I turn the shell over onto its side, you'll notice that the undercarriage is perfectly flat, and that indicates to us that it was a female. The male will have a very concave plastron, which is the term for the undercarriage of a tortoise, and that's so when he tries to jump onto the female's back for mating, that concave plastron fits nicely onto her shell, and he doesn't keep sliding off as he would if his shell was flat like hers, which would be highly frustrating for the male every time he tried to jump on. And who knows, maybe we'll get to see leopard tortoises in the throes of passion, just like we got to see the mammalian leopards in the throes of passion yesterday. So, some interesting stuff and artifacts that we can find along the way. Even if they are dead, we can still find some interesting theories, and like I said, either hyena or lion would have fed on this. Quite often young and hungry lion will be the ones that feed on tortoises. A junior would be a good example of a young, hungry male lion who may well be on his own in the coming months as the Birmingham boys put more pressure on him to move off away from his natal pride, which is the Inkahuma pride. And very often I've seen young male lions who are desperate, no longer have their mothers, sisters and aunts to help feed them, and it's tortoises that they rely on. So I'm just going to jump out and put this back where I found it, which is just on the side of the road here. And then we're going to continue. Sadly, the guys have lost shadow in a very thick block, and she was moving in an easterly direction when they did lose her, heading from our left to our right. And two vehicles came racing past us on this road, trying to relocate her, and what we're going to do is loop further east of that position along Magic Willie Road. The mist, or rather drizzle, is beginning to fall quite heavily, and if it continues to do so, we may need to wrap up this sunset safari, but we're not quite there yet. But as we drive, the amounts of moisture that gathers on the camera may start becoming detrimental to the well-being of its longevity, and we of course don't want any of our equipment to break, because then the safaris would come to a serious standstill. So we would rather just stop if the weather gets too bad. And I've just heard that Jamie is rushing to shelter as the rain on the quarantine clearings is getting a bit too strong, and it could well be that we are going to be forced to be in that same situation shortly. Gendre's got a raincoat all wrapped up around the camera, trying his best to keep it dry. Shadow could pop up at any time here, and the good news is, because she's headed back in this direction, who knows, maybe she wanted to come back and relocate her cub Sandile. So we must also bear in mind that we could well bump into him, and there's a lot of you, including us, that are desperate to see him. It's been quite a few days now since he was last seen, and not only him, but we could also bump into Kwatile and Tingana, a mating pair of leopards whose tracks you've seen just off to our left this morning. Gendre and I have been waiting patiently, listening for about the last 20 minutes and not heard any audio, but that's not to say that we didn't miss it or that they aren't still in this area. Impala up ahead of us here. That's not to say that there's not a leopard nearby. People often have the false impression that if they see impala that are in a relaxed state, it means there's no predator around, but the predator is often unbeknownst to the prey animals until just before it pounces. They are all quite skittish though, and it's these windy conditions that are causing them to run off. Apologies for all the dots of moisture on the screen, but it is what it is. It's a live safari and we've got no control over the weather. Well, that one's carrying a snack on the road there. Interesting. You don't see that very often. We're going to continue on. I just want to make space for Ryan, who's just arrived behind us. Do you want to come past? You're more than welcome. Just blocked Ryan's route. He's rushing off, I think, also to try and get into a good spot to relocate Shadow. So we'll see him shooting past shortly, but it's a good opportunity for Jean-Ray to clean the lens a little bit. Hi Ryan. Hello everyone. How are you doing? Yeah, very good.
This is Scott, guys. A very nice guy.
Don't listen to anything that Ryan tells you about me. He's a bully.
He started the first all South African girl band.
Cheers, guys. He's a real character. And he's actually the head ranger here at Arethusa. He's a wonderful guy, and he often very quietly whispers nasty things to me as I'm presenting to try and throw me off whatever I'm saying. But that time, at least Jean-Ray put him on the spot and locked in on him. So I hope you enjoyed that. And we got a question through from Renee, I think it was, and she's interested to know if the female leopard Shadow that we just saw hunting Impala, whether she would have stopped now that the hyena is kind of on her trail. And it's a very, very good question, because obviously a leopardess will know that as soon as she catches anything, a hyena which is more powerful than her will be able to come in and overthrow her. So it may prevent the leopard from continuing to hunt, but what usually happens is that hyena will come into an area, check whether the leopard has caught anything. If she hasn't, it would rather move off into another area and try its luck elsewhere. Having said that though, it's not uncommon for hyena to trail leopard maybe a couple of 100 meters behind them, waiting for them to make a kill. But there's nothing the leopards can do. They can only just carry on with their business and hope that they can get whatever kill they've made up a tree to safety. And the hyenas have no ability of climbing, so that's the way that leopards can, if they're lucky, avoid their kills being stolen. Thankfully the drizzle for now has ever so slightly subsided. However, as soon as we start driving, it gets exaggerated again. So, bit of a catch-22. We can't sit here the whole afternoon. We've got to keep pressing forward, and I would actually like to try and get slowly closer towards camp in case this precipitation increases. Wonderful that today Jamie managed to find Karula this morning, and Karula is the mother of Shadow. And just the fact that we know so much information on these leopards and also the lions and other animals within this area is a huge privilege, because many areas you may go to in Africa, they won't have as in-depth a history or knowledge of the animals that you're viewing. It may merely be a leopard or a lion. Whereas the history of these animals has been very well documented. Now all we need to top it off is to find the son of Shadow. Another interesting question as to what we think this leopard might do now is from Remay on Twitter, and they're interested to know, do we think that she would carry on hunting or possibly go and look for Sindile, her cub? And it's so hard to say. I mean, she often returns to Sindile after a fruitless hunting exercise, and that could well happen again this evening. It all depends, you know, on what they did this morning or when she last left them, which is information that we do not know, Remay. So very difficult to make a calculated guess as to what she has done or plans to do now. but I think she may have just been relocated. So I just need to listen carefully to the Crackly Game Drive channel and maybe chat to the guys and see if she has been located firstly, and then secondly if there's possibly a spot for us to rejoin. There's just a lot of chatter on the radio, so even though it would suit me to have asked that question immediately, there's people chatting about all kinds of sightings all over the show. And I therefore now have to wait my turn to communicate. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to head into the area where I think she has been relocated and take it from there. Sorry guys, not sure, has Shadow been relocated on Ellie? Okay. I'm happy to lend a hand and move out if we do relocate. So, an invisible fourth vehicle to help out. Okay, copy. So what I just said there is that I'd be happy to help these guys relocate on the Leopard. I assumed that there were still 3 of them searching for it, and that is the limit to how many vehicles will be allowed to work any given area for either tracks or relocating an animal. And that's so that if and when she is found, it's fair that all 3 of those people can join the sighting. It's a limit of 3 vehicles per sighting. But I said that I'm more than happy to help, and as soon as we found her, just move out, because our operation is largely different to the guys who've got huge time pressure to find the animals and show their guests the animals before they leave. The mizzle's getting very thick, the drizzle, and Chandra is not convinced that we are going to be able to fill much longer, neither am I. So I'm not sure if Jamie is in a situation to receive you for a short moment, or whether she's made it back to safety yet. But sadly, if this weather continues to get worse than it is now, then we are going to have to probably call the show now and continue their adventures tomorrow, but we're not quite there yet. Well, happy to hear that Jamie has made it back to camp, and she's just busy drying herself off. But at least that vehicle's safe and sound and undercover, and I think it would be foolish of us not to do the same thing. But we've got good news, we'll be able to show you one last animal before we say goodbye, and it's very well camouflaged, sitting in the road. Chandra is having to use the monitor screen on my dashboard to focus because the rest of the camera is wrapped up, so well done, Chandra. And what a beautiful bird this is. It's a nightjar of sorts. I'm not sure exactly which one. There it goes. But good to end off the sunset safari, which we are going to call it a day now. It doesn't make sense for us to risk ruining any of this equipment and therefore hampering future safaris with all of you. But thank you so much for joining in the action. It's been another memorable afternoon out here in the wilderness. Don't forget the little duiker we got to see, but of course Shadow and that hunting, as well as the interaction with the hyena, was wonderful. The time you got to spend with Jamie and the elephants also sounded fantastic. So all in all, another very good safari. Thanks to Chandra on camera, and to Jess and Nikki for directing the show from the final control room. Jamie does say goodbye and thank you, but she's busy trying to sort out her vehicle and get all that paraphernalia in a dry state and make sure everything's okay. and Andrew also says goodbye. We will see you all for the action tomorrow. Let's hope the weather clears and look forward to whatever happens when we get out there.